Hey, welcome to another episode of the WP Crowd. My name is Roy. Today we have a cool topic talking about cannabis and the marijuana industry as it becomes more legal. Something that we have talked about in the past, but something we love talking about kind of this up and coming business. So we can go ahead and start with introductions.
I'm Robert DeVore. I run WP Dispensary full time now, and I've been using WordPress for the last 10, 15 years now almost, and just an avid user, I guess. Here I am.
Cool. Welcome to the show. It's your first time on. We're excited to have you. We've been me and Robert have been trying to get this show going for about a year now.
For a
So
while.
yeah, so good to have you on finally. And James. And I love you too, James. Don't worry about it.
Aw, thanks. I'm James Tryon, founder of Easily Amused. It's a full-service creative agency and lead ambassador of Waku's. Depending on the topic and what our sponsors think, maybe it's just Easily Amused today.
Cool. Well, so back in looks like August or so, James was actually on this podcast. We talked about why the legalized marijuana industry is actually good for your WordPress business. So I'm gonna try to remember to put a link in the description below or somewhere in a card so you can go watch that. But we talked a little bit more about why the industry being legalized is good for you as a consultant. So we're gonna take a different approach today. Today we're going to talk about whether or if you are accepting that and you want to kind of make your way into this industry and help businesses grow once as states are legalizing everything. What are the things you have to know? So we had a quick chat right before we started recording, and Robert brought up a good point, which I know I've talked to a few people about in the past, but the main issue is one of the biggest main issues is credit card processing. So, Robert, you already have some experience with this, so can you just share what you already know?
Yeah, no problem. Back in January 4th, I think it was, I got contacted by Stripe, who I was using for the credit card processing on WP Dispensaries website. And they told me that although it was just software, they couldn't support it because it was a marijuana-related business. And since I was helping facilitate the sale of marijuana online, I could no longer use their service. So I spent a good few weeks looking everything over and talking to different people. And I actually got in contact with Blue Snap. They reached out to me and said, look, we'd like to be able to help. So they went through the process of, verifying everything on their side and looking everything over and said, okay, since it's just software, it's not in the same realm as if I'm touching the actual plant and selling it myself. So as a business, it's separate. So for freelancers or agencies that are looking to do work within the industry, I think one of the main things to look for is who are you using for the processing? Because if you start putting a ton of different weed sites up in your portfolio and then the credit card processor sees that, they're going to say, well, I see marijuana images on your site, so you're promoting that and helping them, and we can't no longer help you. So just make sure, either go to Blue Snap directly because, they're marijuana friendly, or any other research the companies and find another one that you like, and just make sure that they're okay with what you're doing beforehand.
Is there a connection for WordPress and Blue Snap, or did you have to custom do something?
Yeah, I originally was using Easy Digital Downloads, and I was using that with Stripe because it was a super simple connection. Everything worked just fine. With Blue Snap, they had one for WooCommerce, so I had to switch the store over. But then after about a 3-4 day process of moving everything over from one to the other, it's been smooth sailing ever since. Everything connects through their API. You plug a couple things in and you're good to go.
Yeah, I always found that pretty interesting, like just credit card processing in general. Like it's going to be a really weird, that's probably been one of the painful things I think for anybody kind of consulting or trying to sell really any type of service in this space. And I find it really weird just because it is becoming legal. And I know it's still federally not, kosher, but
right.
The fact that, it's now the recreational legal in some states, it's going to get there eventually. I don't see why it's such a big deal, but I guess, business is business. You got to make sure everything's completely legal.
Yeah, and it's weird because it happened right after Jeff Sessions came out and was talking about how he was going to, deny the Cole memo and kind of go back on that, which was basically giving states the right to just govern their people the way that they want to, and the federal government's not going to jump in unless something big and outstanding is going on. So you're, as a user or a legal dispensary, you wouldn't have any problems. Well, since he reverted back on that, I think it kind of scared a lot of the different, credit card companies and banks and things like that, and they just kind of scrambled to figure out what to do to cover themselves.
I got a follow-up question on that. So with Mexico and Canada, becoming legal as well, do you think it makes sense for for this type of work to maybe get a gateway through Canada as they become more legal?
Yeah, that was one of the things I was actually looking at originally before Blue Snap reached out to me, and it just kind of made the process a little bit easier for me. But I was looking at that because I thought about it. Well, in other countries, it's legal, federally fine, no one cares. So if there's a way to kind of find a loophole, I guess, but I just didn't want to go the loophole route. I don't feel like we should all have to, jump and open up Cayman Islands bank accounts and, try to go the back routes with everything. Just it's not, and especially for software, like we're designing websites or building plugins that help, build a website. It's not like we're selling it on the street corner and, harming children and things like that.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Like, what is the chances of a software company? I know this is maybe a little bit far off topic, but what is the chances of a software company getting raided because they're helping that type of industry?
I hope none. I'm gonna go with zero. Right? Exactly. I'm gonna go with zero on that one.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. As again, we're trying to focus, as we mentioned, consultants. If you are a consultant, it kind of just sucks because it just means that if you want to advertise yourself as someone who can help a dispensary or a business that grow their business, you can't really market yourself really well as that. Like, I'm sure if you don't have the images and stuff, that might help one layer, but if you're still going to want to talk about it on your website, and I actually did this with my consulting business, Art Control. I created a landing page and I used some of Robert's imagery and some of the features from his plugin because I wanted to see if I could create like a little package out of it, build the whole website around his plugin. And I was like, okay, let me do what I do, for other advertising methods. And everywhere I went, it was just, we can't let you advertise this. Like,
right.
I did some Facebook advertising, and I think it lasted like a day before they caught on. And even though I was not I'm not looking for people who use it, I'm looking for businesses. So I was looking at entrepreneurs. I was looking at like my target demographic wasn't necessarily people who use, but people who want to grow a business around it.
Right.
And same with AdWords. Google AdWords caught on pretty quick, and I think they let me run it, but then my quality score was so low that my cost per click was just too high to justify. So it's really difficult. From a consultant point of view, last week we talked about advertising and trying to grow your business. It's difficult, if you want to grow into this industry, because it's going to be a big word of mouth, I think, referral campaign kind of thing that you have to run, because it's really hard to just push traffic and get people to notice you because of all the regulations and stuff that are, and again, credit card processing is kind of just part of that.
Yeah, and that with the marketing, anything from the business side of it, they want to over-regulate and stop the growth of, you're trying to grow something special, and you can't really go and market as I'm designing websites for marijuana companies and then have no pictures or references to the words, because it's never going to get the accurate people that you're trying to find. You want dispensary owners or managers to be able to see it when they're looking up, in LinkedIn or something like that. And you can't actually target it properly because you can't have the word cannabis or marijuana in your description or your title.
I'm curious from your point of view, you've been doing this a little while, without spilling any secret sauce. What kind of stuff are you doing for advertising or marketing? Is it just all word of mouth? Are you actually pushing type of marketing?
No, it's actually just been every day doing something for it and building something new or adding something to it, and then talking to the customers as they were rolling in. Like, I had it up for about a year before I even had a product for sale. It was just a plugin that I built, and I was just kind of going about my regular day freelancing. And over time, it started to catch on, and I said, okay, let me build a couple more things for it. And then I adjusted the pricing. And within the last, like, I'd say 6 to 8 months, it's really started. I'm seeing the growth from it now. I'm getting, search results for different keywords that people are searching for. I'm finding a lot of help with that. So just having the site up for the length of time that it's been up and targeting the specific things I've targeted, it's kind of helped out. That's been pretty much it. That, or one dispensary owner will know someone else and they'll tell their friend, and then that guy will come over and talk. So, that and word of mouth. So yeah, no real, I haven't paid for any paid advertising or anything like that. So it's just been kind of the daily grind of it all.
But isn't that part of what helps, because we're so limited by what we're allowed to advertise? Using something like WordPress allows you to really leverage that organic SEO to really like bring back what WordPress is good at with this market.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where when I talk to people when they come for the setup service, I tell them this is one of the benefits you're going to get. You get everything set up with the search engines with WordPress, and it's going to help you rank better. So if you have, a city in California, or, you want to target Canada mail order services and things like that, you can target these keywords, and it's going to help more than some off the shelf, solution that someone built that works only in its own environment, and you're paying an exorbitant monthly fee for just to, when you're done, not have access to any of your data anymore. It's just, there's so many upsides to using WordPress. And that's from the beginning. That's why I wanted to build it. When I started, I could have went and did something with like Angular or React, or, something, Laravel if I wanted to go with the PHP framework. But I wanted to keep it WordPress because I've built my entire life on WordPress, and I know what it can do for companies and people that are trying to do something. So I just wanted to run with that. And I think that's where it's going to excel the most.
I'm curious, since you already have kind of like some foothold in the industry with the dispensaries, for consultants who are just starting out or consultants that are just making their way, are there anything that they should be looking out for as far as like these, the dispensary owners? I know that in any industry, no matter how vanilla, there's going to be shady people. I'm curious if you've dealt with more of them, or if there's something else you should just look out for if you want to start, again, advertising and marketing yourself to this industry.
I think one thing that would help is if you're a user yourself, or you at least know the industry and you're not a complete outsider. That'll help, because then you're going to understand how to talk to the people without saying things like what you've seen in some random movie where they're trying to make a joke out of it, and you say it because you think it's funny, and then all of a sudden they're looking at you like that joke was played out like 10 years ago. Treat them like a business and understand the business, and you'll be just fine. There's gonna be people that I've had chargebacks for payments where people were using stolen credit cards, or someone would buy something, tell me, hey, I just got this set up, and then 2 days later I'm getting a notification they want their money back from their credit card company, and then I don't get no contact from them anymore. So you're gonna run into it. I mean, it's with any business. I don't think it's been anything over and above. In my experience, I think throughout all of it, it's been a little bit less, just because everyone that I'm dealing with is trying to put their professional foot forward and be the best business they can be. They're not trying to be a little, 200 square foot room that's selling, bags out the back window. They got, establishments and actual businesses where they're paying the hundreds of thousands of dollars for the fees to have licenses to do it. So they want to treat it like an actual business. So I find it's actually a better environment. As long as you know the ins and outs of it, and you're aware of what's going on, you're fine.
Yeah, just like you never know. I mean, again, with any business or any realm, you're gonna find a whole slew of people. Is there anything else, like from a consulting point of view, that you would recommend someone besides obviously knowing like what you're selling, or knowing the industry someone you're selling to is just wise advice, I think, no matter what, especially when you're looking at a niche like this, a niche business. But for example, I want to start building websites for dispensaries here in California. Like, is there something that I should be doing to get noticed, or just to keep myself at a, protected, I guess maybe is a good word. I don't know, like something that I should just, like, the industry a little more. So maybe with some advice or something.
Right. Well, in your case, I'd say, okay, you have specific cities around you want to target, right? For whatever you're going for. I would target those with keyword articles. You could write content like specifically like you would any other industry. You write content saying, here's how you can market your dispensary better. Even go visit a few, go around, just drive around and see what people are doing out front. If they have, better lighting or better this, that, and the other, you can then go and not only help them with their web development, but you're also showing that you care enough about the business that you want to see them succeed. So by doing that, you're going to, over time, if you're blogging about it or talking about it, maybe some of the laws in your area, becoming an actual member of the community, I think is the best way in, because I've talked to a lot of different companies in the cannabis industry, and their main gripe is they talk to other companies, but then they just seem like another off-the-shelf solution that they hear all the time. They want someone with a little bit of insider knowledge to where when they're explaining to you things like terpenes and all these different phrases that most people would look at and go, I don't know what you're talking about. You can talk and finish their sentences for them, and then they become more comfortable with you. So if you don't have any experience in the industry, I still think that for this industry especially would be the best solution, because it's going to build way more trust. I mean, you can learn about, dirt bikes and all that if you're wanting to do like an ATV company, design, but to be an actual part of this organization and be around people that are involved in it, I think that's what's going to do best for you. So I'm not saying actively, if you don't smoke weed, go out and smoke more weed. That's going to help. But if you get involved, even if you do some type of business seminar where you can explain search engine optimization basics for dispensaries, and then you set up like a quick 30, 45-minute talk and you host it, maybe find a dispensary that wants to host it, and then the people that come are going to buy stuff off their shelves, so they're winning, then you're winning because now you've made all these contacts and shown that you know what you're doing. And it's just the human interaction. Everyone's nervous because you see on Instagram or Twitter, you see all these accounts saying, hey, I got drugs for sale, direct message me. So no one knows who they're really talking to. So having a human face with it actually helps.
Are you a cop?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And there's no issues because of the credit card processing, which is kind of a federal thing. I know I've talked about James. So it seems like Florida and California are the same. I'm not sure if this is a nationwide thing, but basically it's a cash business and the cash only business. Does that make it harder for you to interact with them financially because, they are a cash business? Like, do they want to pay you in cash also, or which, it's not necessarily a bad thing if you're interacting with them face to face all the time, but
right.
You can't, it's a lot of effort to put in and not necessarily going to be financially worth it to put out. So you kind of just want to be able to like, hey, here's my invoice, pay with your credit card. Have you found issues with that kind of stuff?
No, because I find a lot of people like they already have business accounts for for themselves, and they're going to pay it off their own dime and then just put it back in some other way. Or I've had people that, they go out and get the gift card and say, okay, I got a gift card with a little bit extra. Can you send me a personal invoice? So this way I can just pay with the gift card. And then it's not tracked to their personal account because they don't want their personal account tied into their weed business. So, and that's happened more often in Canada, where you can actually mail order weed from one end to the other, and they have descriptions on their mail order site on how to package it properly and everything. So it's just, I don't think it's really that big of a difference. I think, it's a cash business for their day-to-day, but like with anything else online, if you have to buy something online, you have to buy something online. So you're going to get it wherever you can. I've found it's been okay with that, because most of my business has actually come from outside of Michigan where I'm at. It's come from California, Colorado, and Canada. Canada being the front runner within like the last year with legalization. Everybody now can just mail weed to each other. So everybody's trying to start new businesses, and it's an easy solution to set up for them. So it works.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of research on this lately, and there was a Canadian webinar, and they were talking about how excited they were to not have to go up against American businesses all over the world. So Canada is like banking in Germany right now because all the licenses, because the feds won't allow American businesses in, which are letting everyone else win around the world, which is a pretty interesting point of view.
So they
Yeah,
can ship outside of Canada or just within Canada?
From what I'm gathering, the dispensary owners or people who start the businesses themselves, they're shipping within Canada, but then the government is actually shipping and exporting to other countries. So it's just from top to bottom, everybody's happy with it and just being
So the
okay with it.
Canadian government is now making money off essentially distributing drugs?
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I'm not saying the U.S. government doesn't do, just
Right.
at least they're open about it.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So I know that ultimately a consultant's not going to know everything, but I'm curious. Obviously we talked about like the credit card thing. Are there any other like basic knowledge things that a consultant should know about dispensaries and like the business right now? Obviously it's not legal in the US to ship anywhere. So if someone wants to, like, how does e-commerce work? If a dispensary is like, I want to be able to sell on my website, what does that entail? Like, what does that even mean?
But right now, with the way I have WP Dispensary set up, I have a connection with WooCommerce, and then that allows a dispensary owner to use whatever payout option they want. So there's the cash on delivery. So if you're a delivery service and you're going to drive it, you can have someone place an order and then you just drive it right to their house, wherever their billing address is, and you're good to go. Then I also added in a pay on pickup. So this way you can pre-order from your house, and then by the time you get there, there's no lines of waiting, because that's one of the main gripes is you're standing in line for 20 minutes waiting because they only allow a certain amount of people back into the room at a time, for security reasons mostly, and they don't want 10 people in their main lobby waiting. So if you can go online as a user and say, hey, I want to pick this up, place your order, now the dispensary can be in the background, packaging everything up. You walk in, your bag's ready, and you're good to go. So that still allows the cash side of things. And then in Canada, there's a Interac e-transfer and a couple other options that they've been using, I've seen. And then some people just decide to use PayPal or whatever other solutions they feel they can, and they go run with those too. I don't know the legalities behind all that. I don't involve myself in that aspect of their business. But for the most part, there's a lot of different options between the cash payments, pay on pickup, cash on delivery, or if you have you can do bank transfers. So if you have a private collective where you know who each member is and you give them the bank details, they can wire funds directly from their account to yours on a monthly basis or whatever you set up. And so there's a lot of different options that you can go to. It's not as stunted, even though the credit card companies for processing are being a little finicky about it. It's not 100% locked down yet.
The wire transfer, that's totally fine. I mean, that's just like cash basically, or
yeah, that's from what I've been told and from what I've seen from people that have been using it. Because I ask as much as I can to try every time I'm working with a dispensary to try to learn something new so I can put it back into the business and make everything better. But yeah, for the most part, that's what it just seems like. You're sending a personal payment from your bank account to their account, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say whether or not that's going to work. Consult with your bank, I guess, and ask them. They would probably know more if they're going to agree to that or not. But people are out there doing it.
So if a dispensary comes up to you as a consultant and they're like, we want WooCommerce and we want to ship, that's basically like, you should just, as a consultant, be like, you obviously don't know your stuff because you can't do that, right?
Right. Yeah, unless they're in an area like Canada where you're able to do mail orders, and then that's okay. You can move forward and help with that. But yeah, I don't. I've had a couple people reach out and ask me personally to ship weed to Europe. I don't understand it, but everybody has their own thing that they like to do. So I try to color within the lines as much as I can while still trying to push boundaries and help as much as I can too.
I know in Florida, as long as you're in their system and you're already a member of that dispensary, they can mail it to you within that city limits. So
okay.
So in Florida, but I don't know if that's just a gray area. They haven't locked down on it, but I know that Knox here will ship it if you're part of their membership and you're already in their system and you're like a Florida resident in medical.
Right.
But you have to be in the same city?
I don't know the rules completely. I just know that I know that they were advertising for elderly, because we have a lot of elderly retirement areas, and they're like, we'll ship it to you if you're already a member. Make sure your ID's on file and your license is on file. It actually has a whole process of uploading your copy of your state medical card and your ID. But have you had any experience, Rob, with cryptocurrency?
Uh, I've bought into some and dabbled in it a little bit. But as far as payments go, I was actually looking into it when all the processing issues were happening with WP Dispensary. I was looking into it as an option to just all I can do is accept Bitcoin. If that's the only thing I can do, that's what I'll do. I don't have it set up yet, but it is in the planning stages for something I would like to do. And I have seen a couple other collectives that have used Bitcoin as an option through WooCommerce. I'm not sure which add-on they were using for it, but they did have those as this is what we'll accept. So yeah, it's a nice blend with that and open source and the cannabis. I feel like everything just kind of works together with the three of them.
Now, what about as more and more states? Because I know California is going to be moving to a seed to sale tracking system very shortly. Have you had any requests, or have you talked to anyone about the big companies that do that, like the metrics and the state,
Yeah,
what do you call it, like tracking the reporting systems? Not necessarily websites, but more of their POS inventory reporting.
yeah, like different compliance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started to look into it as something that I might want to turn WP Dispensary into and just have everything built in-house. But there's so many options that are already out there that have APIs that you can integrate with if you can get an official connection with them. I talked to a couple bigger names and a couple, decent sized ones, and I got turned down by a couple. I feel like, it's just politics. But then right now I'm working on a point of sale add-on to where WP Dispensary will connect with this specific point of sale solution that you use. So now every time your store in the store itself, you sell something, it'll update your website for you automatically. And so this way everything's compliant with whatever tracking and seed to sale tracking you're using in your store. That's already been through the process of doing all the compliance itself. So I'm just kind of tagging onto that and grabbing that data. So it makes it an easier process. So now you don't have, as a dispensary owner, one other place that you have to make sure everything's up to date for. It'll just fire off for you automatically. And then I can find different point of sale solution companies that want to be able to do the integration. And over time, I can help different dispensaries for different point of sale solutions that they already have, or help them move over and migrate to one that we already connect.
Nice.
Yeah, that's super. That's another really big pain point from the ones I've been talking to here, just because they know about the seat to sale kind of stuff. So I've been asked a couple times already, like if I have a solution already in place for that, which I don't. So it'd be interesting to see like what you come up with and what other things are already out there. I've seen some of the APIs which are cool, but again, you have to have I haven't even started the process of trying to get accepted or to get an official connection with them. So
yeah, and that's a thing too. I don't know if I don't think I haven't discussed it on here obviously, but a while back I built a connection for mmjmenu.com, which is a point of sale solution that Weed Maps bought. And their API is open. You're able to just sign up for an account and use it and connect to things. So I built the connection for that in WP Dispensary. Well, since I didn't reach out to Weed Maps themselves and get their written approval, they sent me a cease and desist letter. So I had to take that add-on down. So now I've been going through all the proper channels, just trying to make sure that I'm doing everything the right way and talking to people ahead of time. So I've got a couple of approvals, and a couple people kind of look like, it's a new company. They've never heard of WordPress in general, let alone what's WP Dispensary. So I'm just trying to build my own little foothold over here. And over time, I'll build the extra add-ons for the point of sale solutions that accept it. And then developers and agencies that want to use it, they can just go ahead and plug in that connection and they're good to go. You don't even have the extra work to do. So that's my goal, is to make it just the full all-in-one solution. So whatever you need, it takes care of it.
Yeah, I'm just really worried when I was digging into it. It's just, I know that it's still new and there's still room to grow, but I compare it, unfortunately, right now, which I'm afraid is going to turn into like a MLS, MDX. If you've ever done anything with real estate, it's become this pain in the ass every single time I get a real estate agent who needs a website, and I'm like, do you already have your MLS thing set up? And they say no, and I'm like, okay, that's double my price basically, because I don't want to deal with it. And I'm just afraid it's going to end up being that it's going to go down that route where it just becomes so convoluted that it's just like, don't, as a consultant, I'm just like, it's not worth my time because it is so complicated and so convoluted. I'm hoping they keep it simple. It seems like that's the path they hopefully are on, but I just don't know.
It's seeming that way. There's a lot of actual companies that are popping up that are trying to do menu solutions that are their own just offshoot, and it's becoming more professional now because, you know, a couple years back, like 4 or 5 years ago, you wouldn't see a professional looking website really unless it was a multi-million-dollar company that was like the top of everything. Now you're finding more and more professional solutions, and I think everybody's just trying to make it as easy as possible. So that's where the APIs come in. All the technology that we're using now on other sites, we can tap into it, and if we can make things go from point A to point B without really, you know, pushing a button, we're making their lives easier, and then in turn, you're making your life easier because you don't have them 7,000 different options you have to plug and play with before you can get something working. So I think it's going to be a simpler process long term. It's just going to take some time to iron out all the details. It's still new, as new as it can be in America anyways.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I'm just curious if you've come across any major competitors and like just for WordPress in general in this space. Like, I haven't spent any time researching this, but I probably should have. Not that I know I was going to ask this question, but like something like a Squarespace for dispensaries, is that kind of thing already exist? Is there already like competition for a consultant, or do you think like something like that can't exist?
Yeah, I think there's options out there. Like there's companies out there right now where you can go as a dispensary and pay $199 to $499 or whatever it is per month, and you get a hosted solution where your website's up. They give you different, you know, template options to choose from. I don't think long term that it's going to be anything that's going to hinder the progress of WordPress becoming something big within that space. Everybody there loves the openness. Everybody wants the open data because then nobody can complain and say you're hiding things on them. So with open source being the front runner and saying, hey, you can keep all your data and download backups and, you know, have the security options that you want. You're not locked into a monthly fee of some outrageous number. It's given the dispensary owners a lot more, you know, flexibility on what they're going to choose. And if a developer or agency can go ahead and show them the different ways that they can benefit, that's where it's going to draw in a lot more. You're going to find more search results are happening because dispensary owners now are trying to find how to build a website, how to build a dispensary website, things like that. So they're going to find you if you're doing the work now. So within the next year or so, you're the one popping up, you know, at the top of the results.
And from and hosting, anything like that, have you come across any host providers that have maybe been a little more difficult because of the topic, or
No,
has anyone been cool?
None personally have came to me. I don't know if I've, you know, worked with dispensaries who have switched hosts a couple different times, so I don't know if it was because of that or just it wasn't the best hosting for them or what. But I haven't had no personal problems with it. Everybody seems cool with it. I use for WP Dispensary, I'm using DigitalOcean, and I've talked with them and they're fine with everything. So from my standpoint, it just seems like it's just the little details, the credit cards and the payments, and you know, the government wants to find out how they can get their cut. So once they figure out how to get their little percentage off of everything that happens, then everything will be legal and we'll all be happy. So it's just going to take time to get there, I guess.
Cool. Well,
Now, have you had? I have a quick question. Sorry, Roy. Have you had any like weird pushbacks or being in this market? Because where I'm going with that is I was doing some research based off of Leafly's blog post on the top dispensaries of 2017 based on states, and it wasn't top websites, it was just top, you know, 5-star dispensaries. And
Right.
honestly, more than a third of those sites were broken or didn't work, and then the other half, you know, another third are pretty bad, are dated, and a third are really cool. It's almost like the thing that they're selling sells itself, and they don't need a website. Like, have you had experience with anyone like that? We're like, oh, we're doing fine. Why do we need a website?
Yeah, and that's generally with people who, you know, they have their limit of what collective members they want, and they're not really looking to expand and grow beyond that, or they're not in the mail order business in a country like Canada, so they don't have the needs to go beyond a certain limit. So, you know, just like with a restaurant in your local area might have some of the best food you've ever had, but their website looks like it was done in 2006. You know, it's the same thing. Their word of mouth for them so good, it doesn't really matter. And that's, again, where the education and showing look long term, even if things don't shift for 3 or 4 years, you might end up being a dispensary who also mails things. So to have an order system in place and get your patients already used to logging in, doing things like that, that's going to streamline everything for you from front to back. So it's the education game. You got to give them a lot more to work with.
Yeah, that's actually a really good topic in general, because I wrote a blog post about it not that long ago. Not talking about this industry in particular, but you get these kind of things, these kind of pushbacks for any business. Like I used to do, like I had a person doing cold calls essentially and setting me up appointments to go talk to people about their websites, and I would constantly get people who are like, we don't want to grow our business, you know, we're fine, we're referral, you know, our website, which is basically just has their phone number on it, and it's crap, is fine for them. You know, there's so many excuses. So I think this industry doesn't really differ far from others, especially when it comes to like those kind of objections. But if you're listening or watching, that is a topic for an upcoming episode. So keep on staying tuned to the P Crowd, because that is a topic we have coming up, I think, in a couple weeks. And that's more of like a general business objections and how to combat them. But yeah, I can imagine it is, especially here in California, because like, you know, for a while they were just blowing up everywhere, and anywhere you went, you would see that green cross and just, you know, all right, cool, dispensary. And that was back when it was still just medical. Now that it's 100% recreational, it's not necessarily blowing up anymore, because I think they cut back on the amount of growth of dispensaries, but you still could find them anywhere, especially in certain pockets of Los Angeles where I live. There's places where even with medical, it was kind of ridiculous. It was, you know, you could just come in off the street and pretty much get a medical card.
Right.
But so I'm curious how that's going to shift now that it's fully recreational, and what that means for someone like me who wants to actually start consulting and help these people grow their business and help people stand out, because there is a lot of actually competition here. So I know it's very different state to state, and probably even county by county, but in Los Angeles and San Francisco, things like that, they're everywhere, and the competition is fierce. So as a consultant, I think it's a good industry if you are okay with it. Obviously, get into it. It's going to be a hard grind, I think, at first, but there's as it rolls out even more, man, the puns are just everywhere. As it comes out, as it legalizes, it'll just get better and better. I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys for joining me. It was a good conversation. And as I said, if you're a consultant and you want to get into it, I think now is a good time. Learn as much as you can, because I think a lot of dispensary owners who are just starting out, or even the ones that already exist, don't necessarily know all the rules all the time. And they definitely don't know about technology. I think a lot of them are actually on the, you know, some of the ones I talk to are very smart when it comes to growing and hydroponics and things like that. But when it comes to tech and internet, they're just like any other person who has like no idea what they're doing. So there's a lot for them to learn and a lot for them to grow into. As usual, please subscribe on our YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. We're on iTunes. We're on Google Podcasts. We're everywhere. Subscribe, listen, like us, everything, Facebook. And if you want to be on the show, just go over to Facebook. We have a public Facebook group, WP Crowd, and check out our events. Every event is a recording. Just RSVP and let us know that you want to be part of it. But until next time, I will see you guys next week.